this is something that I think is a huge question mark for a lot of the clients, right? I have clients that come to me, they say, Amanda, I love the city. We're ready for our next chapter. We want to go to the suburbs. We're thinking to go west because of X, Y, and Z. It makes sense for our commute. We've got family out there, whatever. But there are a plethora of options out there. How do you and the team work to help clients analyze which option is best for them?
Yeah. The first step in the process, Amanda, is to have a needs analysis call. I mean, generally, these calls are half an hour, with an intense list of interrogatories that I present to the prospective buyer. In the types of questions I ask are, number one, how much do you want to spend? Okay, because, cost and price, the economics dictate, a filter as to whether or not you get into certain towns.
For certain.
Secondly, there's a needs analysis relative to commute. Do you work at home? Do you work in the city? Do you work suburban? And if you work away from the home, how do you want to get there? Many of the towns that I work in are along impressive commuter rail lines. Do you want to walk to the train? Do you want to drive? That sort of thing. Also, the buyers have to decide whether they want to live in a town that is what I'll call walkable. For example, a place like Hinsdale. You can walk to the train, you can walk to schools, walk to the coffee shop, you walk everywhere. Whereas a place like Burr Ridge or Oakbrook, those are absolutely drivable. Very, very different lifestyles. So cost, lifestyle, education system. We have amazing public schools in the western suburbs and parochial ones as well. What flavor of school do you want? So it goes very, very deep into the family's lifestyle before we can make a recommendation. After the needs analysis call, we do something we call a rapid educational tour. Okay, it's generally a 2 to 3 hour time commitment where we take the two principals. We ask that they not bring kids to the rapid educational tour, and it's an immersion into the education of the lifestyles in the neighborhoods. They're not allowed to buy a house during that tour, but the benefit is that if we identify a specific neighborhood for them and teach them about it, when a property comes on the market 2, 3, 4, 7 days later, we can say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, our property just came on in this neighborhood. Remember that one with the 2 orange play sets in the park? And they say, oh, yeah. So it makes it easier for them to make decisions.
No, that's a great point. And I can't tell you how many of my clients that have gone to you guys that have talked about just how beneficial it was to kind of immerse themselves in that neighborhood on a high level. I call that the window shopping trip, right? We're not buying today. We are educating. We are tasting a little bit of a buffet. We're trying to kind of get sense of it because there's a lot of people that come to you either that have a very specific vision of where they want to be or have absolutely no idea in terms of that. They just know that they like the overall thought process. So here's a couple of questions that I'm going to ask that I know I'm going to admit up front that they're a little unfair. What are areas in the last year, let's use the last year, that you have seen have been more on the popular side or sought after side for people moving from the city to the suburbs?
A lot of people from the city enjoy the walkable lifestyle. And while the nearest western suburban market isn't as walkable as the city, it's a component of their lifestyle that transfers over pretty easily. So as a result of that, if I'm going to stereotype,
which we don't do here,
then the 4 popular Tier 1 towns are LaGrange,
okay,
Western Springs, Hinsdale, and Clarendon Hills. Followed by the north section of Downers Grove and the southern section of Elmhurst. All those 6 places offer walkability.
Now, I'm just going to ask a question. Do those areas that offer that little bit more urban lifestyle and walkability and what we call convenience, do those typically come with a little bit of a higher price tag?
Absolutely. They're high demand, higher density areas within, say, a 20 or 25-minute commute into the city, phenomenal schools. The cost of entry is high.
For certain, that makes sense. Okay, now let's look at the other end of that spectrum. We are Midwesterners. We are value-driven people in general. Even in a luxury market, we are still value-driven. If you were going to look at the other side of that and say, of the areas that you service, what are the areas that, in your opinion, are a little bit more bang for your buck? You get more for the dollar, but it's still a great community to live in. What would you put out there?
Easy one. two-part answer. If you want that walk-to lifestyle, the northern section of Downers Grove and the southern section of Elmhurst offer more bang for buck than the previous 4 towns that I mentioned. All right. However, if you're looking for square footage by way of house square footage and lot square footage, Burr Ridge and Oak Brook offer the greatest affordability on a per unit basis.
That's great to know, because I think especially as home values have gone up, I think people are just intimidated in general as we talk about the fact if you want a single family home, some of the value that it is. I mean, the reality is we're in a metropolitan area. It doesn't come with the same price tags as if you're in the middle of nowhere from that. And so I think it's always important for us to understand that there is, and you guys are so great at navigating, how do you check as many boxes as possible within a price point that's important to somebody? I love the fact that you came forth, and one of the first things, because I think a lot of people go around this, is cost. And it's not what you can afford to do, it's what you're comfortable doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to look into our crystal ball a little bit here, right? Once again, an unfair question. Are there any areas that you guys are experts in that you really are looking to in 2024 as being areas that are going to really gain some attention and just be a little bit more popular that maybe weren't in the past? Yeah,
I'll actually say it's a facet of the housing stock that is the newer houses. And the reason I'm saying that, and when I say newer, I'm saying 0 to 5 years of age. Here's why. There are very few spec houses available. Not a lot of builders in the near western suburbs have been doing spec houses for 2 reasons. Number one, construction costs, both materials and labor, have legit been exorbitant. And they're thinking, ooh, these margins are a little bit thin. I don't know if I want to take on the risk of doing a spec house in this market. So as a result, the inventory for those is ridiculously low. Okay. Secondly, if these builders are good, people who already live in the near western suburbs are engaging these builders to build custom homes for them. And the benefit of custom construction in the mind of a builder is that he or she has a guaranteed sale in place. They don't have to hope that they're going to sell a house. And many of the builders of who I work for are backed up into the 4th quarter of this year already. They can't take on anything. So you asked me what's hot? 0 to 5 years of age.
For certain. And, you know, we talk a lot about that, right? I know you sell a tremendous amount of new construction, as do I. I love selling things that are 1 to 5 years old, because just for the fact that somebody else has worked through some of the original kinks of new construction. But on the hard side is when we talk about inventory, most people, especially in a luxury home level, don't move between 1 to 5 years from that perspective unless it's a job relocation or some sort of lifestyle change that really causes that, because most of them have probably built those houses for their needs and then hope not to. Is that what you've seen as well?
That's a fair statement. I mean, those folks, bought those homes for a specific reason and usually don't like to sell them in that time frame. But, let's hope for a job transfer.
Bryan is saying here he would like everyone in the western suburbs to be transferred out if they have built a house in the last 5 years. That's going to
new crop of people coming in.
That's going to cure our inventory issues here, for certain.